In this lesson, we will learn how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide integers. Remember that integers include positive and negative numbers and can be written as a fraction over 1. When comparing integers, the number on the left is always less than the number on the right. Therefore, -5 is less than -1, or -1 is greater than -5. When comparing integers, we always write the smaller number on this side and the larger number on this side. Let's look at practice 1. We see that 9 is larger than 5. What about -4 and -5? -4 and -5. -4 is larger than -5. And next one is the opposite. -4 is still larger than -5. -8 is less than -3. Now pause the video and complete practice 1. Check your answers. When ordering integers in increasing order, we start with the smallest integer, so the most negative, -10, and we go from the smallest integer to the largest integer. -7 is next, then -2, and so on. When we're adding two negative integers, we're going to end up with a larger negative integer. So -2 plus -5 gives us -7. For example, if the temperature outside is -2 and then it gets 5 degrees colder, we're going to end up with -7. Let's practice. We start with -3 and we add 5 more negatives or 5 more minuses. So we end up with 8 negatives. -8. If we start with -15 and we add 5 more negatives, that's 20 negatives altogether, or 20 minuses. -20. -35 plus another -35 gives us -70. So it becomes more negative. Pause the video and try the other questions. And check your answers. A scuba diver is 50 meters below sea level. If she descends 20 meters, what is her new position? Let's convert the sentences into equations. So 50 meters below sea level is -50. We're going to skip the units. She descends. Descends means she goes down. So minus, or we add a -20 plus -20 meters. So here we could either add -20 or we can subtract 20. -50 plus -20 is -70. Therefore, her new position is 70 meters below sea level. In the next example, we're going to be adding positive and negative integers. Let's introduce a zero pair. A zero pair is made of one positive and one negative integer. +1 and -1 will cancel out. They will add up to 0. So when you have $1 and you spend $1, you have nothing, you have $0. What if we have 2 positive and 5 negative? This is represented by 2 positive integers. -5 is 5 negative signs. Remember that 1 positive and 1 negative gives us 0. It cancels out. +1, -1 is a 0. So we end up with 3 negative. A negative result makes sense because we have more minuses than pluses. We start with 5 minuses and only 2 pluses. And since 1 plus and 1 minus add up to 0, we stay with 3 negatives. So if the temperature outside is +2 and it drops by 5 degrees, the final temperature is -3. You will soon see that adding a negative and subtracting a positive will give you the same result. Let's practice. We have 20 positive and -5, so we have more pluses than minuses. 20 minus 5 is +15. In the next example, we have -15 and only +13. So -15 gives us 15 minuses, +13 gives us 13 pluses. If 1 plus cancels 1 minus, we're left with 2 minuses. We know that our answer is negative because we have more minuses, and 15 minus 13 is 2. Here we have 5 pluses, 20 minuses. We know that we have more minuses. Our answer is negative. 20 minus 5 is 15. -35 plus 35. We have 35 minuses and 35 pluses. Each plus and with 1 minus is a 0 pair, so we have 35 0 pairs. They add up to 0. Now pause the video and complete practice 5 and check your answers. The price of a share of stock started the day at $18. During the day, it went down $7, up $2, down $5, and up $3. What was the price of a share at the end of the day? Let's write an equation. We start with the price of $18. It goes down by 7, so plus -7, then it goes up by 2, plus 2. Then it goes down again, so we're adding -5, and up, so we're adding +3. Equals, we see that +2 and +3, that's +5, it gives us 0 when we add -5. So +5 and -5 is 0, then we end up with 18 plus -7. 18 minus 7 is 11. So at the end of the day, the price is $11. As I already mentioned, adding a negative integer is the same as subtracting its positive. So 2 minus 5 is the same as +2 plus -5. And we see that we have 2 0 pairs, plus and minus cancels out, and we end up with -3. And we can represent it with the number line. We start with +2 and then we subtract 5, or we add -5. The result is -3. It is often easier to change subtraction to addition of a negative integer. So -5 plus -5. And we already know that -5 and another -5 add up to -10. Same with B. We start with -100 and then we adding another -100. This results in -200. However, in example like C, we have 100 minus 100. We would just calculate it to be 0. Same with D. 35 minus 5 is 30. Pause the video and complete practice 7. And check your answers. A roller coaster begins at 70 meters above ground level. Then it descends 90 meters. Find the height of the coaster after its descent. Let's start with an equation. So 70 meters above the ground, so that's positive 70. It descends, so minus 90. Remember, with the scuba diver example, we could also do 70 plus -90. The result is the same, -20. Therefore, the roller coaster is 20 meters below ground level. In the next example, we're going to subtract a negative integer. And when we subtract a negative integer, we're going to add its positive. So every time you're going to see minus a negative, you're going to change it to plus. I am going to show you 2 explanations for why minus a negative becomes a plus. The first explanation includes multiplication, which we're going to do in the next part of the lesson. So when we have 2 minus -5, there is really 1 in front of the brackets. And you're going to learn that when you have brackets, it really represents a multiplication. So we have 2 minus 1 times -5. And negative times negative becomes positive. So we have 2 -1 times -5 becomes +5. Another way to explain is we start with +2. So we have 2 pluses. But then we have to remove 5 minuses. We don't have any minuses. So instead, we're going to add 5 zero pairs. Remember, a zero pair is made of 1 positive and 1 negative. So we're going to add 5 zero pairs. And since a zero pair is we're just adding zeros, we are not changing the value. I hope you can see that this still represents only 2, because that's 2 positives and everything else is just zeros. But now we have 5 minuses, the red ones, that we can subtract. So -1, -1, minus -1, and so on. And we end up with 7 positives. Let's go to practice 9. Remember, every time you see minus and negative, you're going to rewrite it as plus positive. Now it's simple. 4 plus 5 is 9. -4 plus 5, we have 5 pluses, 4 minuses, that's 5 minus 4 is 1. Here we have 95 minuses and 5 pluses. We have more minuses, so our answer is -90. And D becomes really simple. 5 plus 5 is 10. Now pause the video and complete practice 9. Now check your answers. The temperature was -8 degrees Celsius last night. It is now -12 degrees Celsius. Find the change in temperature. We represent it with delta. This is capital delta T. Change is this triangle delta, and capital T stands for temperature. So change in temperature. And we calculate any change by taking the final value and subtracting the initial value. In our question, we start with -8 degrees Celsius. That's our T1. We end up with a -12 degrees Celsius. That's our T2. And to find the change in temperature, we take the T2, -12 degrees Celsius, and we subtract T1, which is -8. Remember that we have to put the negative in brackets when we subtracting that negative number or we adding that negative number. Now we know that we have, so this is change in temperature, -12, and we must change minus and negative to plus 8. Now we have 12 minuses and 8 pluses, so change in temperature is -4 degrees Celsius. That means that the temperature dropped 4 degrees Celsius. We cannot say that temperature dropped -4 degrees Celsius because that would mean that it dropped -4, which becomes +4. So when we, to represent -4, we have to say the temperature dropped 4 degrees Celsius. And here we have a similar example. We start with -5, so that's T1, and the temperature goes to -15, that's our T2. We see that the temperature drops because it goes from -5 to -15. Now we're going to use our equation for change. You can use it for change in height, change in time, change in temperature. In this case, change in temperature is T2 or T final minus T1 or T initial. We substitute the values and we change minus negative to plus. We get -10 degrees Celsius, which means that the temperature dropped 10 degrees Celsius. The traveling weatherman Hundi measured the temperature in Toronto and recorded 1 degree Celsius. He then teleported to Sudbury and measured temperature of -8 degrees Celsius. How much did the temperature change between Toronto and Sudbury? So we're looking for change. So this is our T1. We start with 1 and we end up with -8 degrees Celsius. And it's final minus initial. So we end up with -8 degrees Celsius minus 1 degree Celsius. I like to change -1 into plus -1. You don't have to, which is -9 degrees Celsius. So we see that temperature dropped 9 degrees. So the change from 1 to -8 is -9. Practice 12. The temperature was measured at 6 p.m. to be 12 degrees Celsius below zero. If the temperature dropped 13 13 degrees Celsius overnight, what is the temperature in the morning? We need to show an equation. So we're not looking for the change. We know that the change is negative 13 because it dropped 13 degrees Celsius. We need equations. So we start with 12 degrees below zero. So we start with negative 12 degrees Celsius. Then it dropped, so minus 13 or plus negative 13. So we end up with negative 25 degrees Celsius. So the temperature is negative 25 degrees Celsius in the morning. The temperature in Sault Ste. Marie changed from negative 12 degrees Celsius, so that's our T1, to negative 2 degrees Celsius, that's our T2. Calculate the change. Remember, positive change means increase, negative change means drop or decrease. So change in temperature is final minus initial. T2 is negative 2 degrees Celsius minus T1 is negative 12. Remember to change minus negative to plus, and we have 2 minuses and 12 pluses. That gives us positive 10. So the temperature increased 10 degrees Celsius. We can also show it on the number line. We start from negative 12 and we go 10 up to negative 2. So we increase it by 10 degrees Celsius. The coldest temperature ever recorded on Earth was negative 88 degrees Celsius at Vostok Station. The highest temperature ever recorded was 56.7 degrees Celsius in Furnace Creek Ranch, Death Valley. What is the difference between the highest and the lowest temperature? So difference between the highest T1 and lowest T2. So the difference in temperature is T1 56.7 degrees Celsius minus so let's change this to T2 and T1 between highest and lowest. So T2 minus T1, negative 88 degrees Celsius. That's plus 88. And the difference is 144.7 degrees Celsius. So the difference between the highest and the lowest temperature is 144.7. Okay, an elevator in the building with 9 floors is shown on the diagram. So here, ground level represents floor number 1, and then P1 represents 0, and P2 is negative 1. If the elevator is currently on the 6th floor, and the following addition represents the movement of the elevator, on what floor will the elevator stop? We can solve it 2 ways. So we can go 1 floor down, and then 3 up, and then 7 down, and then 2 more down, and we end up at P1. And because this method is so messy, I already made a mistake. So let's start again. We go 1 down, 3 up, then 7 down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 2 more down. So we end up at P2. I like the other method more. I'm going to add up all the integers. So these are my movements. So negative 1, positive 3, negative 7, and negative 2. So negative 1 and negative 2 give me negative 3, and I have positive 3. So all these add up to negative 7. So I start at 6, and I add negative 7, which is equal to negative 1, and negative 1 corresponds to P2. And now pause the video and complete the other parts. And now check your answers.